Jacqui Johnson of Sankofa Healing Studio. Tell us about yourself, about what you do, music, hip hop, integrated healing, EMDR, trauma, etc.
Well, you just said it. Hey, what's up? Yeah, in Philly, do a little bit of everything. Social justice art therapist. So I'm a trained art therapist. I'm a trained play therapist. Do EMDR, also facilitate training specifically for therapists of color called EMDR in color. Brain spotting consultant as well. So yeah, hip hop, Reiki, chakras, all about holistic healing.
What's EMDR and what's brain spotting for those people who don't know, and even Reiki?
Yeah,
Oh,
right. So,
Ricky.
so EMDR, eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. So basically, shit happens to us, right? There's trauma that happens, and when that happens, it doesn't get stored in our brains in a way that's synthesized. It's kind of like these fragmented parts. And with EMDR, you do something that's called bilateral stimulation, which is really just a fancy way of saying, moving that left and right, whether it's our eyes moving or our bodies moving, tapping. So hip hop is perfect for that, that left and right, that really kind of mimics REM sleep within our bodies and helps to integrate those memories and things that have happened to us. So then that way it's not so much in our face and as triggers, it's something that we can actually heal from. We don't forget that it's happened, but it's something that doesn't control our emotional regulation in the same kind of way. We're able to kind of get it at an arm's reach. Brain spotting, similarly, really good with a lot of different things, including trauma. And really, brain spotting is where you look, impacts how you feel. So just even thinking of daydreaming, you go to think about something, someone asks you a question, and you look up or you look down or to the side. We all do it. It's our natural thing. It's almost the way that you can kind of describe it is when you're looking into whatever that spot is, it's allowing your brain to kind of go into that file cabinet to pull out that specific memory you're searching for. So it's kind of what those two are, simplified in layman's terms. But yeah, it's all about healing.
That is super interesting, the brain spotting thing, because I know that for a while there was a school of thought of like you could tell if somebody was remembering something or if they were making it up depending on like which side they were looking to. And to hear that kind of be used as a platform to help with healing trauma, like that's pretty interesting. I never would have like applied the two together. Um,
Yeah, like I don't know anything about, if you look left or right or what that means because we all kind of access our files, right? Our
yeah,
brains are like computer chips. This is this big computer and you have all these millions of files. Every experience of us talking right now is a memory that's being created right in this moment. So you got millions of those.
You
So
are you working with children or adults? Or both?
both, mostly adults though. My population specifically is the Black community around racism, anti-Blackness, oppression, and specifically mass incarceration. So I
mm,
look at mass incarceration and name that as a trauma in and of itself.
mm,
And, how does that impact our community? What does that look like? And how do we heal from it, especially when it's still going on? It's not a trauma really that has a beginning, middle, and end. It's something that's perpetual. And how do we look at how we can regulate our systems to really be able to deal with it on an ongoing basis? So yeah, so with adults, also, with youth, with our juveniles that are caught up in the carceral system as well, even in education, lack of education, lack of resources, all of those things are traumas. And yeah, and it has negative impacts on the emotional developments.
Struggle is real.
yeah. And just for this lovely art.
Yeah, it's energy healing. Really just looking at our bodies, our everything is through healing and energy. So with me, I specifically look at chakras. And you have these, these different healings pieces, these energies. And those seven energy centers all speak to a different part of us. They're connected to different frequencies. But yeah, it's all just energy. And when people think of energy, they think of woo woo. But when we talk about a chiropractor, that's energy. When we talk about acupuncture, that's energy healing. When we talk about prayer, that's energy healing. So sometimes people don't know what it is and associate things that it really isn't. This is nothing more than just tapping into ancestral roots of how do we exist.
Jacqui, how does hip hop tie into your practice and what you do? Because you're part of kind of our HipHop Therapy therapeutic applications, a hip hop cohort, right, with J.C. Hall and Brittany Williams and Rhythmic Mind and all that crew. Can you talk a little bit about that and how you see that healing and beats and music and rhythms and all that?
Yeah, for me, it's all about cultural alignment. So when I'm looking at it and I'm looking at my community and the people that I serve, this is the communication. Hip hop it's an art form, right? It's words, it's our truth, being able to stand in our truth. It's about being able to talk about really hard, difficult subjects. But as we're doing it, as I'm saying, even with that energy and when we're looking at something like a bilateral stimulation, which, is that movement back and forth, and you do that with hip hop. When you're listening to it, your body is automatically, you're rocking with it. And it's processing some of those traumatic events. So the combination of the two just makes sense. It's also something where oftentimes people can relate to specific lyrics because it may resonate, it may be parallel to whatever's going on in their own life or whatever their own experiences are. And it's easier to be able to talk about those types of things from an arm's length. I don't have to talk about me, I can talk about the song. So perfect example, especially with youth, when I go into the jail and work with youth, I'll ask them, so if I wanted to know who you are, something about you, what song would I listen to? And what part of it? It gives so much information. I was dealing with a brother, all kinds of, just struggles in a life, issues with incarceration and all kinds of things. And asked, if I really wanted to know about you. And what he told me was, dear mama. And I asked, I'm like, all right, what part? And he said to me, you were a dope fiend mama, but you were always a black queen mama. And it spoke volumes because his mother struggled with substance use. She had a real, bad struggle with addiction, and he was very, very young. So there was a lot of things he was exposed to, a lot of things that he struggled with, and it kind of showed up with, how he shows up today with some of those traumatic experiences. But through that conversation, I was able to find that thing out. It was interesting. I had another brother, same exact song, same piece. The difference is I had been working with him and he never mentioned that his mother had recently passed. And just by talking about the song, he started to reminisce and talk about, how different, songs were played, throughout his life. And how he missed his mom. And, so I'm asking, he's like, yeah, she passed like 2 months ago. Had not told me that before. And I was working, talked about all kinds of other traumas, but that was something that was just so heavy that he never could actually say out loud. But when you bring in hip hop and some of these really powerful lyrics, it opens the doors.
You feel like incorporating hip hop helps reduce the stigma around mental health and getting help for your mental health, especially in the Black community?
So I'm a little controversial here. I don't call it stigma in the Black community. I think when we look at stigma, we have to look at the whole narrative of what that means. So with stigma, it's, we have a misunderstanding of what it is, and it's like, no, I can't do that. But I think that doesn't tell the whole story. It's not that the Black community doesn't want to get healed. It's not the Black community doesn't believe in spaces of healing. The Black community doesn't feel safe in traditional spaces of healing, because oftentimes it has been Eurocentric and oppressive. It has definitely been used against the Black community, whether it's criminalization of it, whether it's pathologizing. So I kind of push a little bit just with that word, because it makes it seem that those in the Black community are responsible for not getting therapy, rather than we don't have enough culturally aligned therapists to provide all of the healing spaces that we actually need. So, just really looking at the whole narrative, I think absolutely hip hop and being able to bring in what is in the communities, right? So I'm here in Philly, we tons of community violence, and people are out here hurting. And instead of coming in and telling you this is how you should heal, you use what people are already using to heal. That's what people are already listening to. They're already vibing off of. They're already trying to regulate their bodies by listening to the drums and moving their bodies to the beats and dance and expression, right? You're writing lyrics, and you're writing the lyrics because it's telling a story. But it's telling a story in a way that just regular words and me talking to you, it's so much more. Because when we think of hip hop, we're thinking of the culture of it, the whole embodiment of it, not just the words. And it's so much more powerful. And why not meet people where they are for real, since that's what we say that we're supposed to do. And that's what I do.
Mic drop.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then you add in, art. That's what people do. You express, and especially when we're looking at incarceration. So many dope artists that they're really trying to tell their story, but people aren't paying attention. So we're not watching, and we don't see their stories in art, and we don't hear their stories in lyrics. And that's fucked up. But that's our traditional healing spaces. So really trying to expand and taking back what our healing practices are. So we want to think about beats and stuff, looking back at traditional healing circles and drumming circles and what that sounds like and what that feels like. So it's all very, very related.
Jacqui, you came out to TFTFT both days. You were there in Oakland and San Francisco. We appreciate you joining us. What did you see, like from a clinician's eye and a practitioner's eye, and other perspectives that you may take, but like clinically or from a mental health perspective? What would you say you felt like you were witnessing, or what was the benefit of that, if you could come up with one?
Yeah, the first thing that comes to mind for me is my thing is groups. I specialize in doing groups, and just watching whether you were someone who was, actively involved in creating the music, or someone who was there to listen to the music, there was a community synchronicity, right? If people are vibing together, there's the mirroring of just good energy. It regulates us. It regulates all of us. And that's what I saw. Like, you didn't see people sulking in the corner or upset. And, there was just a space where people could just be, which oftentimes is what's robbed of us with trauma. So you come to a space and you can just connect with others, and you can look at someone and never say a word, but just your body language and a way that you just vibing, and everyone's kind of head nodding, and there's a connection. It's a very clear connection within the circle.
I think that's really fundamental, isn't it, in terms of the healing work, where trauma can really isolate people and make you feel not understood. No one can understand your trauma, whereas to me, what I talk about, and I think this is what you're saying, is really that through the oneness, through the joining of beats and the cipher, we can come together and really connect through that simultaneous beat, like the synchronicity, the joining, right, into something that's bigger than ourselves, the community, the power of the the healing power of hip hop, the healing power of the cipher, the healing power of, connecting with others. Would you say that is that kind of what you're saying?
Absolutely, because I mean, even when we're looking at the limbic system and just our basic needs is connectivity, right? No man is an island, and just the way that we're wired, we need to be connected to others, and what a beautiful way to do that. Especially we're all on that same beat, and especially when we look at something like the drums. There's always that drum piece of it, and drums speak to our root chakra. That balance, that stability, and that's huge. That's huge. That's that key of stability and feeling safe. And it holds us. It holds us all, and we're bopping to the same thing, right? The way that we're moving, the way that we sway back and forth, all of those things are all incorporated in healing, and ancestral healing that we just haven't named in the same way. But I think hip hop and hip hop therapy does that very intentionally.
So you got Sankofa Healing Studios, which is an integrated.
I think that as someone who's not a clinician, even like is really new to this space, like listening to this is really naming a lot of like what I've been experiencing with music, especially hip hop, since the 80s. So it's like that feeling, that communal moment, like you can walk into a room and not know anybody, but you all catch that vibe, and it changes everything. Now you're connected, and now like the issues that you were bringing with you off the street no longer hold the same amount of control over you. Like when I think about TFTFT, like, and listening to people play listening to SP play, and then like looking over at like Soul, who I have like a personal connection with, but like above our friendship, like the appreciation of the music and the connection of the music like made me feel more connected to him, made me feel more connected to Telly, made me feel more connected to UA, to like all these people that some I know and some that I don't know. But it's like that whole tribal feeling and connection happens, and it all boils down to like the drum and samples.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
It speaks to us. It's that heartbeat, right? It's that whole connection, and that's what we need. So when we think of the way that trauma impacts us, we have this window of tolerance, right? We all do. And when you start to go outside of that window of tolerance, that's when you feel disconnected and you start to numb. And when you're disconnected and you're numb, you're not connected to folks. You're not able to have empathy. You're not able to communicate. You're not able to do any of those basic things. And then you can misread cues, emotional cues from others. It's what we see in our communities that are really hurting. Whereas when you bring in music, everyone connects. You can connect immediately. There's just something with it. And especially if it's at that tone and at that rhythm that's with the heartbeat, it's just that synchronicity and mirroring that winds up happening. So, yeah.
So you have Sankofa Healing Studio, which is a nonprofit, a 501c3 nonprofit based in Philadelphia. You have a new space that you're moving into. Tell us about the new space and the vision for the studio and what services you're going to provide.
So the vision is to create something that doesn't quite exist right now. A space where you can come into, you go into a Planet Fitness, right? And you have all of the healing, the exercise equipment. You get to pick and choose and decide what you want to do. And that's for our physical health. And why don't we have that for emotional health? You get to come in and you get to pick and choose. So within this space, there's art therapy, there's play therapy, there's going to be the HipHop Therapy studio, there's a yoga room, where you can do yoga, you can do Reiki, we can do Zumba. There's a community lounge that's going to be in that space. So you have all of these different rooms and spaces that when you come in, depending on what's going on, depending on what part of your healing journey you're on, you get to pick and choose how you want to interact with healing for that session or for that day. And you can do more than one. I'm also do sound and energy healing, so sound baths. So looking at the tongue drums and the crystal bowls and Himalayan bowls and ocean drums and rain sticks and being able to really be intentional to respond to what the person needs in the moment in all different ways. So, and being able to do the beat making and also be able to record. I mean, just so many different, and just being connected. So yeah, so that's the vision of it. Also traditional therapy in the sense that it would really be somatic based, because I'm not a talk therapist. It's really all about the body. So even with EMDR and brain spotting and all those other things as well.
Super dope. Well, I'm really hoping that we can get a young Pasha in there with you to
Yes.
help with the studio and the beat making aspects over there in Pennsylvania. I know that we also have another guest with us, and we also have flips and all that kind of stuff. So maybe, Jacqui, just give us kind of a wrap up, if you will, and things to expect, look for, that we should check for, ways we can support, etc., interact.
Yeah, sure. So it's Sankofa Healing Studio, Sankofa. So, and if people aren't familiar, Sankofa is an Adinkra symbol from the Akan people, and it's the bird with its head turned backwards with an egg in its mouth. So the idea of it really is about not to be afraid to go back and get what you lost. And the way that I use it with the Sankofa Healing Studio is, we need to go back to the past so that it can protect our future and change our present condition. So just a little bit of understanding of even what Sankofa means. But at Sankofa Healing Studio on Instagram, on Facebook, sankofahealingstudio.org. And all the contact information is there. As I said, it's a 501c3. So anyone ever wants to donate things, whether it's equipment or finances, we offer low cost to free therapy in the community, specifically in the Black community, which has very few resources.
And Jacqui, I just want to highlight this. This is incredibly rare that you'll ever have therapy being offered for free, especially that, you're not like taking like Medi-Cal or I don't know, maybe you are, but even so, like you are doing this an incredible service with top-notch training, EMDR being one of the foremost trauma, quote unquote interventions or treatments, along with your multimodal integrative holistic healing practice. Like, this is an incredible service that you're giving to the community.
Yeah, I don't believe that resources should dictate how people are able to connect to healing, and whether I think part of the issue that I have is in our society, cash rules the world, right? And that is in so many of our different spaces, and those that need the support the most are generally the furthest away from the resources. And I'm not a fan of that at all. I'm an activist, artivist before therapist. So it's really about being able to connect with the community and support in ways that that are needed. So yeah, folks come and pay what you can. If you don't have insurance, you pay what you can. You should not have access to these kinds of modalities just because of finances.
Do you mind dropping a link or a spelling in the chat?
Sure.
Yeah, so everyone definitely check out at Sankofa Healing Studio on Instagram. If you follow Today's Future Sound, Sankofa follows TFS. And, you can go to, is it sankofahealingstudio.org?
Yep.
Yep. So sankofahealingstudio.org. Jacqui Johnson. Jacqui, if I can urge you to get on LinkedIn, that would be wonderful, because then I can tag you on posts on there. I've been tagging, or I've seen other Sankofa businesses and institutions on there, but we need you on LinkedIn, and we need to spread the good word. And thank you for all the phenomenal work that you do. I know you're now a professor at the university where you're getting your degree, and that's amazing, and an incredible resource and activist. I mean, someone who's even like, manages to get 400 art kits into the local prison, and is working with the warden to and really bring in the work and the resources to the people who need it the most. So thank you for what you do, and major props on that.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely a pleasure. You're definitely GBC and TFS family, and we will definitely look forward to seeing you in New York. Really quick before we jump to art, I know Maddie J's got to run. I want